The war had been long and brutal, the kind of conflict that stretched across star systems and ravaged civilizations. The Aelethians were a powerful alien race known for their strength, cunning, and ruthless nature. They had conquered many worlds, driven by a singular goal: dominance over all lesser species. Their warrior society was built on the idea of superiority, and they never considered the idea of defeat. Kara, a high-ranking Aelethian commander, had seen countless battles and faced countless enemies, but none intrigued her as much as the humans. These small, fragile creatures, barely out of their primitive stage, had a remarkable resilience. They were stubborn, capable of enduring hardship, and fighting for survival with a determination that struck a chord in Kara's icy heart. She had never understood their drive. To her, they seemed like an amusing distraction at best, and at worst a nuisance. But something about them fascinated her. They didn't back down, didn't bend under pressure, even when facing overwhelming odds. There was an energy in the humans, a spark that she couldn't quite explain. And so, when Kara was given the task of hunting down and eliminating the last remaining human resistance fighters on a barren planet known as Theros, she took it as a personal challenge. She landed on the planet with her elite squad, determined to crush the resistance and bring the humans to their knees. They had no chance, Kara was certain of it. She would demonstrate the full extent of the Aelethian might and leave no room for rebellion. Her squad swept through the human hideout, tearing down barricades and cutting through the resistance like a hot knife through butter. Yet, as she moved deeper into the camp, she encountered something unexpected. One human, a man, stood at the center of a makeshift arena, holding nothing but a crude weapon, a rusty rifle. His name was Captain Isaac Gray, and he was leading what remained of the human resistance. He wasn't tall, his frame lean and unremarkable, but his eyes burned with the kind of defiance that Kara had never seen in any other human. There was something in his gaze, something fierce, something that made her pause for just a moment. "Are you the leader?" Kara's voice was cold, commanding. She addressed the human as though he were nothing more than a mere speck of dust in her path. Isaac didn't flinch, nor did he lower his weapon. "I am," he replied, his voice steady, calm in the face of certain death. "And if you're here to fight, then we'll give you one hell of a battle." Kara laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed through the ruined buildings around them. "You think you can win? You are nothing but ants beneath my feet. Your resistance is futile." But even as she spoke, something about Isaac's defiance piqued her interest. She ordered her squad to stand down, wanting to deal with him personally. She would show this human what it meant to defy the might of the Aelethians. She wanted to break him, to see him crumble beneath her power. But as she stepped forward, she found herself drawn to him in a way she couldn't understand. Isaac didn't retreat. He didn't cower. Instead, he stood tall, his rifle steady in his hands. Kara raised an eyebrow, intrigued. This human wasn't like the others. He wasn't frightened. He was challenging her, and she liked it. "You don't know who you're dealing with," Kara said, a low growl in her voice. "You can't win, no matter how hard you try." Isaac's lips curled into a small, defiant smile. "I don't need to win," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "I just need to show you that we won't kneel to anyone." For a moment, their eyes locked, and something shifted within Kara. A strange feeling stirred deep inside her. Something unfamiliar, something she couldn't quite place. She had always been the one in control, the one who dominated others, but this human, he was different. There was a fire in him, a strength that she couldn't easily crush. "You're strong," Kara said, more to herself than to him. "I'll give you that, but it won't matter. In the end, you will submit." Isaac lowered his rifle slowly, his gaze never wavering. "Try me?" Kara felt a sudden surge of power, the urge to strike him down where he stood, to break him, to end the resistance once and for all. But instead, something made her hesitate. She didn't know what it was, but she felt it a challenge, a pull. Her hand twitched at her side, and she realized that she didn't want to just crush him. She wanted to prove something, not just to him, but to herself. "I will break you," she said, her voice softer now, almost intrigued. Isaac raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing on his lips. "We'll see about that." Kara took a step forward, and before she knew it, she was standing face to face with him. Her senses were heightened. She could feel his breath, the heat of his body, the undeniable presence of this human before her. She had conquered so many in her life, destroyed countless civilizations, but never had she encountered something like this. His defiance, his unwavering spirit, was unlike anything she had ever seen. With a flash of movement, Kara lunged forward, her hand grabbing Isaac by the collar and lifting him off the ground. She held him there, her strength overwhelming, but Isaac didn't beg. He didn't plead. Instead, he stared into her eyes, as if daring her to do her worst. For a moment, Kara considered crushing him, ending it right there. But something in her, something deep within her, refused to allow it. The longer she held him, the more she felt it, an unspoken connection, an understanding that she had never experienced before. She wasn't dominating him. She was captivated by him. The power she so often wielded seemed to fade, replaced by a strange yearning. "You think you can defeat me?" Kara's voice was thick with frustration. She had never felt so unsure of herself. Isaac's voice was low, steady. "I don't need to defeat you. I just need you to see that you can't break us. We won't bow to you, no matter how strong you are." Kara slowly let him go, her hands trembling as she dropped him to the ground. She stepped back, confusion clouding her mind. She had come here to crush him, to dominate him, and yet all she wanted was more. His resistance, his unyielding spirit, was more than she could have ever imagined. And it was that very spirit that broke through her walls. Kara began, but the words caught in her throat. She didn't know how to explain the strange feelings that had overtaken her. For the first time in her life, she felt vulnerable, powerless in the face of a human. Isaac looked up at her, his eyes softening. "You don't have to be alone. You don't have to keep fighting this. There's more to life than domination." Kara stood still for a long moment, her wings twitching behind her as she tried to reconcile the emotions racing through her. For the first time, she felt something she had never felt before, a longing for something more than victory. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "Please don't make me fight you." Isaac stepped forward, his hand gently resting on her arm. "You don't have to fight anymore. Let go." In that moment, something shifted in Kara. She had come to conquer, to dominate. But now, she was the one who found herself submitting, not to Isaac, but to the realization that there was more to life than power. She had spent her entire existence focused on control, on war, on dominance. But what she truly needed was something different. For the first time in her life, Kara allowed herself to surrender, not to her enemies, but to the one thing she had never understood, the power of connection. And as she knelt beside Isaac, feeling his warmth and compassion, she realized that domination had never been the goal. What she truly desired, what she craved more than anything, was love.